Welcome, everybody. This is David Nevins for Citybiz List, and we're happy to have you today enjoying our program. Our guest is Ken Krieg. Ken is the CEO of Medical Optometry America, otherwise known as MOA. And Ken has been at the forefront of innovation and entrepreneurship in healthcare. And MOA is just the latest in a series of very successful healthcare ventures that both have and are changing the healthcare landscape in America. Ken, welcome to our program today.
Thank you, David. Happy to be here today.
So glad to have you. So MOA, or as I said, Medical Optometry America, is an emerging brand that is, I noted, already starting to transform, let's say, the eye care ecosystem. Tell us about the company and what drove you to start it.
The last 15 years, I've been the CEO of a company called PRN, Physician Recommended Nutraceuticals, operating in the optical space, in the eye space. And during my 15 years with PRN, which was a company that offered evidence-based nutraceuticals and supplements into the eye space for different disease conditions, we really had a chance to take a look at the way the ecosystem was set up for patients to get access to care for non-surgical eye disease issues. And what we saw was a very interesting situation, which really caused us to make the investment and make the decision to build the MOA company. So in the United States, we have about 15,000 ophthalmologists. And ophthalmologists practice surgery. This is a surgical profession. And at this point in America in 2022, we're closing in on about 5 million cataract surgeries a year. So the ophthalmology waiting rooms are filled with baby boomer patients who are in line now for their cataract surgery. But this creates a problem because these same ophthalmologists then don't have the bandwidth to take care of a wide array of non-surgical eye health issues: dry eye, glaucoma, macular degeneration, diabetic retinopathy, and so on. It would lead you to believe then that a lot of that traffic would wind up in optometry offices, but we didn't find that to be the case. So interestingly enough, optometry in America, primarily a vision correction specialty, although by license, the optometrist can do all of these non-surgical eye health disease issues, can work on these disease issues, but for the most part, they weren't. This is a function of training, predilection, the relative lucrative nature of optical America over the last so many years. But what we saw was a paradigm shift. So as the capture rate for being able to sell a patient glasses or contact lenses was coming down, the disruptive change from the Warby Parkers and the 1-800 contacts and other online distribution channels caused the optometrist to be concerned now about maintaining that margin and maintaining the revenue that they have been creating from the optical side. So it seemed to us the void here would be filled by optometrists that were willing now to play on the medical side. But the issue became that many of them were far removed from the training, the equipment, and the capability to fill that void. So MOA was set up specifically to find that middle space between optometry, historical optometry, which is basically a vision correction specialty, and ophthalmology, which is basically a surgical specialty. We needed to have a group that was willing to tackle millions and millions of patient visits that were currently having a hard time finding access or finding a home. And that really led to the creation of the first MOA Center in January of 2021, after about a year and a half worth of working on the issue and building the company.
So that was quite well put, Ken. I guess in simpler terms, would you agree that MOA has positioned itself between the eyeglass store and the ophthalmologist, and there's a big space there, correct?
Yeah, if you want to look at it in simple terms like that, we are getting referrals from all parts of the eye industry. So, ophthalmologists send us referrals because they're too busy to see a lot of these cases. And optometrists send us referrals because, quite frankly, they don't have the equipment that we have. And many of them have lost touch with a lot of the clinical side of how they were trained. So the model is very specific. It caters to basically a void in the market.
So I know I don't think people, I certainly wouldn't go to the corner eyeglass store for this, but I know that you are treating a number of patients that come in with, different conditions. What are some of those, and what are you seeing out there as you grow the business?
Right. The most ubiquitous disease in the world is actually dry eye. And in the United States, it's thought to be somewhere between 40 and 50 million Americans experience dry eye issues. About 7 or 8 million of those 40 or 50 million make their way to a doctor for treatment. It's a disease condition that can go anywhere from mild to intractable, and intractable dry eye is definitely life interrupting. So we do a lot of dry eye. And again, this is a disease issue that the ophthalmologists prefer not to deal with. It's time consuming from their point of view. It takes a good amount of time to work through, do the workup, and then make the proper recommendations or provide treatment for the problem. Another major issue in the United States is 25 million or so type 2 diabetics. And it's presumed to be another 80 million or so on the waiting list. So America is in a diabetic, a huge problem with the diabetes questions in America. And type 2 diabetics need to have an annual eye exam. Last year, there were about 22, 23 million done in America. Now, the optometrists are perfectly capable of conducting that diabetic eye exam, but many of them don't do it. Many of the public don't know that optometrists can do it. And the referral nature of the marketplace generally sending those patients to ophthalmology who don't want to spend the time. When you have a diabetic exam, there has to be a pretty intense report created that's sent back to the primary care physician. Many MDs, ophthalmologists, really don't have the time to do all that. So the MOA Center is perfectly capable, willing, and wants to do these type 2 diabetic exams, do all the reporting back to primary care. And as part of our overall eye physical that we create, we're able to identify other disease issues as well while that exam is occurring.
So Ken, you mentioned, you just briefly mentioned the eye physical. I know that Americans basically are set up to go to various types of doctors on a regular basis. Your dentist wants you to go twice a year. You go once a year to your internist, and so on and so forth. You at MOA have created a concept known as the annual eye physical. So tell me a little bit about that.
Well, as you said, David, the American public has become conditioned to 1 or 2 dental visits a year. Many folks do an annual physical with their GP or their primary care physician. And we've known for quite a while that the eye is the window to many health issues, health concerns. And in a proper eye physical, eye examination, a lot of disease issues can be uncovered, a lot of stuff that can ultimately be referred out as necessary. You get an early read on a lot of these disease conditions, which otherwise might go wanting. So the annual eye physical, as far as we know, may be the first of its kind in America. And we have created along with it what we'll call a scorecard or a report that is given to the patient. that report is something that the patient can then use with their primary care doc, come back the next year and see what progress has been made in dealing with some of these issues. And the feedback we've gotten over the last year has been spectacular for this eye physical. It really is a new product that has not existed in American medicine to this point. So we're actually finding that quite rewarding. And I think it's a big feature of what we offer to the new patient who has really not gone to the eye doctor other than for the normal vision correction exam, which is not this. This is something very different.
You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I know that this is a big part of your value proposition, and just the idea that the condition of the eye, the health of the eye, is tied so closely to one's overall health. I think it's something that the average person doesn't necessarily know about.
Yeah, a big percent of disease issues are picked up in an eye exam. Hypertension, you can pick up arthritis, you can pick up diabetes, and other major health conditions can be diagnosed or early read created from the eye exam point of view. We've had a couple of those cases already coming through our first center, and some really good stuff has been done in alerting patients to early warning signs for more complicated, more chronic disease issues that they probably didn't know about.
Well, good for you, and kudos for that. So we've been talking mostly about the healthcare side of MOA. Let's pivot just a moment to the business side. I know that you're up and running at 2 locations, and you have plans for more. So tell us a little bit about your plans for the future and where we hope to see MOA over the next couple of years.
Yeah. So, like all businesses and in startup business, generally we deal with a proof of concept. And the proof of concept for MOA started with our first center in Shrewsbury, Pennsylvania, opened in January of 21. So that's, I guess, going on about a year and a half. During this year and a half, we've been really amazed at the success we've had. We've gotten referrals from all parts of the healthcare community. Our revenue run here in the 18th month, people are really shocked by how well we've done. Again, this was a naked startup. So we started this center middle of the pandemic, in the middle of the winter, not necessarily a prescription for success. But here we are a year and a half later, and it's operating at a mature level at this point, already profitable. Second location opened up in suburban Philadelphia in Newtown Square. Same patient experience, same equipment, highly trained doctor, came out of a ophthalmology practice and has excellent credentials. And he's about 6 weeks into it, and patient bases are building similarly to the way they built in Shrewsbury. So far so good. We're pretty confident he'll do well. The play out for MOA in terms of how we will build this company. Right now, we're looking at building a cluster of centers in a region. We'll look at a regional concept, and I would like to have 4, 5, or 6 MOA centers in the greater Philadelphia market, and then the equivalent in other major metropolitan markets around the country. So in the near term, and we'll call the near term maybe the next 12 to 18 months, I would look for the company to have a cluster of MOA locations in the major markets, perhaps 2 or 3 markets long over the next 18 months, meaning 4 or 5 in the greater Philadelphia market, 4 or 5 in Pittsburgh, Baltimore, and so on. We'll probably stay reasonably proximate to the East Coast just for basic logistical and operational reasons. But the capital we're raising now will allow us to probably grow to around 15 freestanding centers over the next couple of years. And then, if we're right about the model, this will become a national program. And we would like to see MOA centers across the United States over the next 3, 4, 5 years. And then eventually, David, the plan will be to figure out a way to work with existing optometry practices rather than just necessarily building freestanding centers, which is what we are doing now. And we will buy some practices. We have some conversations going on now, and that might be buy a practice and convert it to the MOA brand. And so we buy into a patient base, but we'd like to buy from an optometrist that had a good track record on the medical side, perhaps built some goodwill along those lines, just needs to do it our way, which is a little bit more focused marketing, a little bit more equipment, but we can take a base of business and hopefully then convert it to the model that we're trying to put out there.
I was just going to ask you, Ken, you kind of just referenced it. So kind of what's in it for the MOA, what's in it for the doctor, for the optometrist? Why should he or she associate with you? What do they get out of it versus, let's say,
Right.
Their own practice?
Well, that's a fascinating question, and one that I have thought about for many hours. As an entrepreneurial type who've done a lot of these disruptive businesses. So I think the profession can be sorted out almost generationally at this point. You have young graduates coming out of optometry school now who are pretty much predilected to work on the medical side of the practice. And so all of the younger graduates we talk to are very eager. I had a young lady in yesterday who is a year out of her residency and she just wants to do medical. And so I think we're going to find that across the country. And then you move it into the folks that are probably in their 40s running practices or working in practices. Their question is going to be, does the optical business that they're currently doing hold up for the next 20 years? Is it going to take them home to retirement? I think that's an open question. And so for those that are in their 40s or in, sort of in that range, working with a MOA might give them the ability to find a more sustainable business over the next 15, 20, 25 years of their occupational life, And then those that are in the third tier, let's say 55 to 60 and above, I think they're now questioning their retirement and who will buy their practice? Does it have any value all these years later? And perhaps MOA can be an answer there by taking some of those practices as those folks get ready to retire and creating an MOA model out of what they built historically. So I think I would look at it from 3 generations point of view in terms of the practicing optometrists in the country. And I think we have an answer for all 3.
It sounds like indeed you do, and that you're very much at the forefront here. I was speaking just the other day, actually, to a senior person in the pharmacy field, and they were talking about the fact that pharmacists go to school for a number of years, and they're not really all that excited about then working behind the counter at a Walgreens or CVS. No offense to those important institutions. But again, it seems like you're tackling the same issue with optometrists who, may not want to spend the entire day fitting glasses on folks and want to deal with more significant and serious health issues. And it certainly seems to me that's where the future is, and that's where the action is.
Yeah, again, there had to be a number of different circumstances that created this moment. And the fact that the MDs, the number of ophthalmologists in the US is not growing. It's a very flat number. That 15,000 number has not moved in quite some time. And that's really a function of the residency programs and the fellowships. It's pretty controlled. So the ingress and egress in the profession is pretty consistent. So as the number of surgical cases dramatically increase, the ability of the surgeons to deal with these non-surgical issues is just limited. So any optometrist that takes a glimpse into their own crystal ball is seeing the reality of this. Unless we make this paradigm shift to the medical side, we're facing compromised margins in our optical business, disruptive competition on online channels. It makes a lot of sense. So the question becomes, David, those that are many years out from their training perhaps are not confident about returning to the medical side. And that's something we're taking a look at. So yeah, we can work with the young graduates because we know their training is pretty fresh and they don't need an awful lot from us. They're kind of ready to go. But if we move into that zone of the 40s and 50s, we're going to have to do some retraining. And we're actually thinking about our first location in Shrewsbury being a training center, so that we'll run folks through there who need to do some of this refresher medicine and take a look at the new equipment and sort of just get comfortable with where non-surgical eye care has graduated to in 2022.
Ken, this has been a fascinating conversation. Let me ask you lastly this question. How do our viewers learn more? How our viewers may be prospective patients for MOA, and they may be there may be some optometrists watching, and there may be some business and financial folks who just want to learn more. So I need a simple answer to how, no matter what category you fall
well,
into.
I'll give you a
how do they find
slightly more complicated answer than that, but I understand the question. So from the profession's point of view, from the optometry point of view, we want to get the word out there. We're going to start going to the major national conferences. We're going to engage speakers and some key opinion leaders, work with organizations like yours, David, and we want to get the word out there now. I think we're ready to sort of get the profession wheeled into this program. I think it's time to do that. From the patient's point of view, we're in one big market now in the greater Philadelphia area. Our website, medod.com, is certainly available for basic information. But we're going to be spending money soon on getting the word out there. So initially, with proof of concept, it's a question of us being satisfied that what we're doing is the right thing and that it's working. And then once we're convinced of that, we want to get the show on the road. And that's kind of where we're going to be going in later of 2022 and into 23 and beyond. We're going to make some noise out there and make sure the public, remember, we got two lifts going on here. We have a lift with the general public and we have a lift in the medical community. And those are big lifts. So I want to do it right when it's the right moment. But the simple answer is the website. The bigger answer is we're working on getting our name and our value proposition out there aggressively.
Well, Ken, thank you for joining us today. Our guest has been Ken Krieg. He's the CEO of Medical Optometry America. Check them out on their website. And Ken, it's been a fascinating conversation. I'm sure you're going to get a lot of feedback, and we appreciate your being with us today.
Well, thanks for your questions, David. They were insightful, and I appreciated the time. Thanks much.
This is David Nevins for Citybiz List. And if you're interested in our conversation today, check out MedOD America. I think you'll find it valuable. Thank you very much, David Nevins for Citybiz List.